Good evening, everybody. Our story today begins in 1938. It involves three women. Gisela, my great-grandmother, in her 70s. Hulda, my grandmother, in her 50s. And Ilse, my mother, in her early 20s. All three women were born into a Viennese Jewish family. Hulda married Rudolf Frankenbusch in 1909. They converted to Christianity due to the anti-Semitic feelings prevalent even at that time. They had two daughters, Anita and Ilse, my mother. The two girls were looked after by their governess, Joanna. But their carefree childhood came to an abrupt end when Hulda found that her husband was having an affair with Joanna. Hulda left Prague with Ilse, and Anita stayed with her father and the governess. Hulda and Ilse lived with Gisela, my great-grandmother, where they ran a busy guest house just outside Vienna. In her spare time, Hulda was companion secretary to Princess Marguerite von Champagne, an American heiress, and who was to take a major role in later years. So, back to 1938, just before the Anschluss, when Austria became affiliated to Germany. We find a trio of ladies in three different countries. Gisela is on her own. She eventually had to give up the guest house to the German army and fled to Vienna, where she had an apartment. Here she was looked after by various relatives, and Roman, Ilse's fiancé. Hulda is stuck in Paris. She had visited her daughter Anita in Rotterdam, but due to the advancing German army, was finding it difficult to re-enter Austria to be reunited with Gisela. Ilse was advised to leave Austria. As the German army advanced, she fled overland through Germany to Rotterdam to be with her sister Anita, and from there she travelled to England. From 1939 to 1944, Hulda remained in France, working tirelessly, trying to obtain travel documents for Gisela so that she could join her. The following extracts are taken from a cache of over 250 letters, telegrams and documents my siblings and I found after my father died in 2004. My mother had died 10 years earlier. The letters tonight start in November 1938.
Vienna, November 1938. Gisela to Ilse. My golden girl, I'm so relieved to hear you have arrived at Annie's, but I will be even happier when you join your dear mother in Paris. I am having to share my apartment with others. I have moved into Hulda's room next to the kitchen. It is very small. Roman visited me today. What a dear man he is. You and Mum are sorely missed. I am just very, very scared. But I will make it through and imagine a better future.
Gisela had every reason to be scared. Vienna had just endured a night of horror and chaos, later called Kristallnacht. In Vienna, it was particularly brutal. With Nazis being joined by civilians, they burned down most of the city's synagogues and prayer houses. Other Jewish buildings were also targeted, vandalized, and ransacked.
Paris, March 1939. Hulda to Ilse. Darling Ilse, child, it's been a sad Easter spent alone, but the weather is glorious. Paris is flooded with foreigners, and it's impossible to move on the boulevards or get a seat in a cafe. I went for a walk in the Bois de Boulogne, but it was so crowded. Imagine, I had to pay 5 francs for a coffee. I'm so worried about your grandma. I have been informed that her visa application is proceeding. There is no more I can do from Paris. Communications seem to be breaking down between Germany and France. I'm so worried that Grandma will never be able to leave Vienna. What then? It doesn't bear thinking about at all.
Hulda had contacted the Princess Bon Compagnie, who is living in Paris, and the Princess has promised to do all she can to help Hulda and to sponsor her.
Paris, July 1939, Hulda to Ilse. Dearest Ilse, last Wednesday I was with the Princess at her lawyer's. I found it important that the Princess said to the lawyer in my presence that she would be responsible for my guarantee. Now I'm waiting to see what will happen. So, my dear, now I'll finish. Kisses, Mutti. Paris, September 1939, Hulda to Ilse. Oh, my dearest, we can't lose our nerve now. We can only hope that we get out of this mess, as we have done so many times in our lives. What shall I do? I haven't heard from Mother for over a week. I don't even know if the mail is getting through. What shall become of your grandma? Shall I ever see my mother again? Can you imagine my anxiety? I don't know if they will allow us to stay in Paris. If only I knew where to go. I will try and be as strong as possible, because I want to live to see you, my dear girl, happy and lucky. Paris, October 1939, Hulda to Ilse. My darling Ilse, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do to help you from here. You see, there is no possibility of you coming to Paris. You wouldn't get a visa. You must understand, there are new war regulations about strangers staying in Paris. A very happy birthday to you, my dear Ilse, on your 24th. There are so many things I would like to tell you, but mainly that I want to see you in the future, happy and lucky, and as sweet and as loving as I always knew you.
For the 3 women, the end of 1939 brought with it the end of any hope of being together again in the near future. Europe was at war. Borders were closed, and travel between enemy countries was impossible. For the foreseeable future, Gisela, Hulda, and Ilse were each condemned to a life alone in a world that had changed forever.
Here is the BBC News for the 10th of January 1940. Reports from Vienna suggest that about 11,000 Jews have succeeded in emigrating from there to neutral countries in the 4 months since the outbreak of war. At the start of war, Jewish leaders in Vienna were told by the German official Adolf Eichmann that all Jews who did not emigrate within a year would be exiled to occupied Poland. However, recent reports indicate that on Eichmann's orders, mass deportations of the Viennese Jewish population actually started on the 20th of October 1939, when about 1,500 Jews were deported from Vienna to a camp in Nisko, Poland.
Paris, February 1940, Hulda to Ilse. Oh, my dear, what a strong letter that was. I get so worked up. I was happy to receive your letter. When you're so alone as I am now, it does such good for a depressed person like me to know that someone is worrying and thinking about you. I should actually be angry that you have given me your money that you worked so hard for. You are very precious. It's good, though, to be spoilt a bit. Why can't we be together? On top of it all, I have worries about you, about grandmother, and about Annie. Dear God, I'd like a rest for once in my life. Little one, please look after yourself. I'm so incredibly worried, above all, about what we have yet to experience. Lots of kisses, little dear one. You love me lots, and I love you too. Ruti. February 1940. Hulda to Ilse. Ilse, great news! I have to tell you that I have managed to get my travel permit. I should be travelling to Nice next Friday. I can't wait, because here it's really cold again and I'd like a bit of warmth. I assume that it is already spring-like in the south because they're already selling Nice violets. Also, my cough and general health aren't too well. You're right. You really should take care of your health in order to survive the bad times and to be able to enjoy the good times to follow. Nice, March 1940. My dear Ilse, firstly, very happy Easter. I sent you a parcel today. It's a basket of candied fruit, a Nice speciality. So from this you will probably realise that things in Nice are a lot better than in Paris. Here we are far away from the action, and if it wasn't for all the uniforms, you'd think you were in total freedom. Nice is beautiful, dreamlike. The sun is shining, the sea is blue, and I've seen my first orange tree. I'm taking long walks, but be careful because I'm still coughing nicely. But because of the sun, I'll soon feel very well. The journey was very expensive and it took up all of your £4. If I hadn't had it, I wouldn't have been able to travel at all. So for that, I must say a big thank you. Right soon. Lots of kisses. Mutti. Nice, March 1940. My dear Ilse, today we still don't know where our destiny will take us. Let's hope for the best. The idea that you'll not be able to come here makes me all dizzy. If God likes me just a little bit, he'll let me stay here in the sun. Nowadays we don't know anything for sure. And now, my little one, lots of kisses. Right soon, I'm always waiting. Am I allowed to say, see you soon? I don't dare. Dear, dear God, let it be true.
BBC News, 10th of May 1940. The United Kingdom has a new Prime Minister. Mr. Winston Churchill has today succeeded Mr. Neville Chamberlain and is to lead a coalition government of all parties. In his opening speech, he offered the population of Britain only blood, toil, tears and sweat. His policy, he said, was war. War against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalogue of human crime. Germany has begun a major land offensive against France and the Low Countries. German forces have entered France via the Ardennes, and a separate invasive force has attacked Belgium, Holland and Luxembourg.
This unexpected move by the Germans brought to an end any travel plans that Ilse and her sister Anita might have been making to go and stay with their mother. And the tone of the next letter from Hulda has changed completely. She sounds almost hysterical as she worries about what might have happened to Anita and how the invasion of France has changed her own circumstances.
Nice, May 1940. My dearest, I'm half to death with anxiety about Annie. I had to stay in bed yesterday having a bad crisis of nerves, and my heart was doing funny things, jumping. What can we do to know if she has survived this terrible time? Did they get away in time? Ilse, I can't stand it any longer. I go crazy over all this. Why can't you help me? Why is there nobody here to help me? Everybody is nice and kind to me here, but they're strangers. Please, send me a telegram that you're all right. I want to have you near me, and there are miles and miles between you and me. Will we ever see each other again? Will I ever see my mother?
BBC News, June the 18th, 1940. France has become the latest country to fall to the Germans. The French government has announced their surrender after 6 weeks of defensive action and the intensive Luftwaffe bombing of Paris 3 weeks ago. The fall of France to Germany follows the surrender of the Belgian government on the 18th of May and the capitulation of Holland 3 days before that as a result of intensive bombing of Rotterdam.
A postcard from Biarritz, June 1940, from Hulda to Ilse. Darling, here I am in Biarritz, but don't ask me how I got here. It was a dreadful journey, nor how I am living. I had to take the room they gave me. I'm half dead with fatigue. How are you, my darling? Will we be together again? I'm worried how my money might get through. After the news of the last few days, I'm not sure if my July allowance from Paris will reach me.
The news of the last few days would have been of Italy entering the war on the side of Germany and the occupation of 3/5 of France by Nazi Germany. Biarritz, on the far southwest coast of France, now became part of the occupied zone. It probably took a few months for things to change in that part of the country, as it was a long way from the seat of power in Paris. No more communications were heard from Hulda for 3 months. Then, Ilse received a telegram from her mother's previous address in Nice. Hulda must have realised her mistake in leaving Nice and fled back from Biarritz as soon as she could. 1940 had been a year of hope and desperation for the three women. Hope for Hulda as she left Paris and arrived in Nice to a more relaxed lifestyle. Desperation as she feared for Anita's life, with the growing realisation that she might never see her daughters or mother again when Holland finally fell to the Nazis. For Gisela in Vienna, hope was fading fast as she became more and more isolated and lived in fear inside her apartment. For all three of them, the letters between them were becoming increasingly important and offered a moment of hope in an ever-darkening world.
BBC News, February the 1st, 1941. Reports have been received by the BBC from Vienna that deportations to Poland of the 60,000 Jews still living in Vienna have begun. Ever since the Anschluss of 1938, the local Nazi leadership has pursued Hitler's overall plan to remove the Jewish population from the Greater German Reich, which includes Austria. Local sources say that they have confiscated large amounts of Jewish-owned property and have already deported tens of thousands of elderly and impoverished Jews.
Vienna, February 1941. Gisela to Ilse. Dearest Ilse, I hear so little from you and Mum. How are you both? Well, I hope. Roman visits me a couple of times each week. He gives me much support. All we seem to talk about is the two of you. He is unchanged, dear and good. There is not much news to tell from here. All we can do is wait. I am so thankful that I am healthy, so far, but one does not get any younger. I have heard from your sister. They are doing well and have opened a new shop. Have you heard from your father? Dear Ilse, please keep on being brave. 1,000 kisses, grandmother.
England, February 1941. Ilse to Gisela. Dear grandmother, I was so happy to hear news from you after such a long time. The main thing is that I know that you are well, and you can't have got that old because your handwriting is just as it was 2 years ago. You are a brave grandmother. Tell me, dear grandmother, what are all our friends and relatives up to? Who is still alive and who is dead? Oh, I miss home so much. Sometimes I think I should never have gone away. It is easier to be poor at home than it is in a foreign country. Grandmother, you must be brave and stick things out so that we can all be happy. Stay well, old one. Look after yourself and thank Roman for me for being so nice to you. It's good for me to know that he's looking after you. Lots of kisses and hope to see you soon. Ilse. England, February 1941. Ilse to Hulda. Oh, Mutty darling, I hope you are all right and have enough money to live from. Please take good care of yourself and keep your chin up. These strenuous times must be over soon, and then we will all be happy again, and we will always stay together. Then I will look after you and try to make your life as happy as possible. Please be a good girl and don't worry about me. I am perfectly all right and am only longing very, very much for you. Good luck, all the best, and 1,000 kisses from your Ilse.
Nice, March 1941, Hulda to Ilse. My dear girl, all this time I've been longing to write to you. At last they say that letters are getting through. Yes, my darling, we'll stay together and try to build up a new life. If there would not be this hope for the future, I really would not have the strength to go through these hard times. Spring in Nice is beautiful, with everything in bloom, but it would mean so much more to me if you could be here to share it with me. My greatest pleasures are when I receive your letters.
In June, Ilse received a letter from the Red Cross, from Mary Campion, OBE, of the International Relations Department. It appears that Princess Boncompagnie had agreed to pay for Hulda to join Ilse in England, if documentation could be arranged. On the 18th of July, Ilse received a letter from the Under Secretary of State at the UK Home Office, which must have been a real blow to her. London, July 1941. Madam, with reference to your letter of the 7th instant, I am directed by the Secretary of State to say that in present circumstances it is regretted that facilities for the entry into the United Kingdom for your mother, Mrs. Hulda Frankenbush, cannot be granted. I am, Madam, your obedient servant, J. Martin.
BBC News, October the 31st, 1941. Reports have been received of the deportation of Jews from a holding camp in Drancy on the outskirts of Paris to camps in Poland. It has been estimated that in August alone 4,300 Jews were collected in Paris and imprisoned at Drancy. If the currently reported rate of collection at Drancy and transfer to Poland continues, then tens of thousands of Jews will be deported in this way. The BBC has also learned that in addition to Poland, Germany is establishing concentration camps in Latvia, which was occupied along with the other Baltic states in June of this year during Germany's offensive action against the USSR.
Vienna, December 1941. Gisela to Ilse. Dear Ilse, why no sign of life? I am very worried. I have also no news from Mum or Annie. I feel terribly lonely because I have no one here anymore. My cousin, Aunt Schaefer, has poisoned herself 3 weeks ago out of fear for the future. And so one hears and sees only sad things. Please, dear Ilse, write to me how you are. Do you have any news? From your father? From Hanny? Be hugged and kissed from me in Vienna. Yours, Grandma.
Nice, March 1942, Hulda to Ilse. Beloved, I'll try to write to you. Letters are arriving from England. Maybe it's possible. And I have such a longing to tell you everything that has happened recently. Dear Ilsekind, it's all so sad. I told you about grandmother's illness. Yesterday, I got more devastating news. Grandma, only half recovered, had to leave Vienna for Poland like so many others. But I can't find out when and where. Isn't that horrible? You can imagine my state of mind. I'm sick with fear and desperation. I immediately wrote to Geneva and the Red Cross. Well, little one, you would hardly recognize me. I went grey and looked skeletal, 48 kilograms with my winter coat. It really is getting too much. Can one endure? I am completely at a loss, alone and isolated and very, very dispirited. When will this nightmare end and where will it all lead to? Where will destiny lead us before we will all meet again? That's my only hope, and hope keeps me going. You can't imagine how I'm waiting for your telegrams. Take care of yourself, my beloved Ilsekind. You are all I have. I haven't heard from your sister for months. 1,000 kisses, Mutti.
It was in Riga, Latvia, that Gisela's life came to an end. In January 1942, a concentration camp was established in Riga, providing alternative accommodation to the ghetto, which already existed. It was a couple of months later that her family discovered she had been deported. Several years later, they discovered where she had been sent. It appears that she fell ill in Vienna and had to go into hospital. While she was there, the Nazis cleared the hospital and sent the inmates east in the middle of winter, some to Poland and some to Latvia. She was 72 when she was deported. Whether she died as a result of her illness, old age, cold and exhaustion, or was murdered is unknown. There were several deportations of Viennese Jews in January that could have included Gisela. The fate of most Jews arriving in Riga in early 1942 was to be taken out to Rumbala Forest and shot.
England, June 1942. Ilse to Hulda. My beloved Mutti, you can imagine how happy I was to hear from you and to be able to write real letters to you again, not just telegrams. I am busy saving because after the war I want us two to live well and not be hungry. Mutti, please, please be steadfast. I have several plans for afterwards, and with a bit of luck we won't do too badly. I also fear the worst for Grandma though. I hope a miracle will happen and we can be a 3-girl household again. Oh, Mutty, if only it would be behind us already. Sometimes I feel it's even too much for me. Beloved mother, take care of yourself. Please don't lose any more weight, or I will have a hard time to nurse you. Always know that I am so very sad that I can't ease your burden. Please be my brave mum and stay strong whatever happens. I send you all my love and 1,000 kisses. Your Ilse.
London, September 1942. Letter from Mary Campion of the British Red Cross to Ilse. Dear Miss Frankenbush, we have today received the following letter from the International Migration Service. Following up our letter of June the 17th, we beg to inform you that we have received a letter from our office in Lyon regarding Mrs. Frankenbush. We are told that she had been arrested in August, but has been released as she could prove that she was a Protestant and married to a Protestant. She is now back at home, but her material situation is difficult, and she would be very grateful if her daughter would send her assistance. As we told you in June, Mrs. Frankenbush was regularly receiving assistance from Princess Bonne Compagnie, but it seems this is no longer the case. As soon as I hear from Geneva, we will write again to the American Red Cross and ask them to get in touch with the Princess and see if something can be done. Yours sincerely, Mary Campion.
Nice, November 1942, Hulda to Ilse. My beloved Ilsekind, finally a letter from you. They are my treasured days. How happy I am that you are well, healthy and content. Many, many thanks for your help. Thanks to you, I could meet my debts and pay the rest of the bill for the doctor. And I don't owe for the accommodation anymore. Then, unbelievably, I received a sum from the Princess. If they leave me alone, then I hope to pull through. What makes me so sad is the situation with grandmother. If the same destiny awaits me, then goodbye to all future plans. I will be just as unreachable as your grandmother. Can you understand my fear and nervousness? I'm so isolated here that sometimes I have the feeling of being cut off from the rest of the world. Beloved, soon it's your birthday, your 27th. This letter won't reach you in time, but I can tell you that I wish you luck, health and all the best. Whatever happens, please don't forget me. For all of us, I have only one wish, that we will be together and not drown in misery, to live a human existence again. Love, beloved, 1,000 hugs and kisses, Uti.
BBC News, November the 4th, 1942. The Allies have achieved a major victory in North Africa, near the Egyptian city of El Alamein, forcing the Germans to retreat from the region and securing key strategic interests. In announcing this victory to the House of Commons today, Mr. Churchill said, "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." BBC News, December the 17th, 1942. In a major speech today, the British Foreign Secretary, Mr. Anthony Eden, told the House of Commons about mass executions of Jews by Germans in occupied Europe. In Poland, Jewish ghettos were being systematically emptied, except for the able-bodied who were being sent to labour camps. "None of those taken away are ever heard of again," he said. Those who are sick or injured are left to die of exposure or starvation or killed in mass executions. The House then heard him read out a declaration made by the governments of the UK and 12 other countries. It condemned in the strongest possible terms this bestial policy of cold-blooded extermination and made a solemn resolution to ensure that those responsible for these crimes shall not escape retribution. BBC News, June the 1st, 1943. We have received reports that there are now 30,000 Jews crowded along 30 kilometres of coast in the Alpes-Maritimes region of France. This follows the concerted military action in southern France last November, when the German army entered the unoccupied zone and simultaneously the Italian army occupied territory east of the Rhone, including Nice. In the German zone, the French police have continued their manhunts for foreign Jews, arresting and deporting 1,500 people in one operation alone at the end of January 1943. However, in the Italian zone, arrests have ceased, and Jews already captured but not deported have been released and generally well treated. As a result, thousands of Jewish refugees have fled into the Italian zone, especially Nice and its surrounding area. In German-held territory just down the coast in Marseille, the deportations continue.
Until November 1942, Ilse had been able to send money to France. Eventually this became impossible. A letter from Mary Campion of the British Red Cross in December of that year stated that Hulda had not received any money from the Princesse Bon Compagnie since July, but had been given 700 francs from Ilse via the Quakers. This money proved to be vital, as she had been in a desperate and nervous state. Still trying to send money to her mother, Ilse again wrote to Mr. Anthony Eden at the Foreign Office, but his reply on the 8th of April 1943 was negative. There are only 3 letters from Hulda in Nice during 1943 that have survived. 2, plus a short excerpt from another, are addressed to Alex, a friend of the family.
June. My dear Alex, at last, after a quarter of a year, I have received a very welcome letter. For 8 months, I have had no money from Marguerite, and any connection with her or her bank is cut off. In the first few weeks, I had very little to eat. I sit in my nearly empty apartment and live with the support of relief organisations. But they are in short supply and very irregular. I sometimes despair. If you were to see me, I have lost 19 kilograms. I'm like an emaciated skeleton and have become quite an old woman. Can you understand my state of health? Help must come quickly. I am really at the end of my resistance and very depressed and under great strain. So, now you know everything about me. The depressing feeling and huge loneliness weighs heavily on me. I feel a sense of waiting to be uprooted. I'm also without stimulating mental work. My head is quite empty, continually ruled with one thought. Will I be alive in the morning? Forgive this rambling, I'll call it a day. Please, let me hear from you again. Your letter was a connection with the outside world. Many, many sincere greetings, Hulda. September. Dear Alex, what joy! Your letter is like a call from another world. A world that no longer exists, that lies so far in the past, that one can no longer understand that we once lived in it. I go through good and bad times whilst impatiently awaiting the better times. From Ilse, I have had no news for months and am very anxious. Sometimes I'm so despondent, my usual good optimism has gone. Situation, grief, poverty, deprivation have made a thorough mess of me. Naturally, it's called survival, and not for a moment do I lose courage. But when one must walk around hungry, it's really not astonishing that one is despondent. If my letter's not as cheerful as usual, don't take it badly. Give my greetings to Rudy. I hold him very, very loved. I yearn for you both and hope we will be together once again. I thank you for your dear lines and send you many, many heartfelt greetings. Hulda. Write, please. Write soon again.
BBC News, September the 20th, 1943. It has been reported from Nice in southern France that a ruthless manhunt has been conducted against the local Jewish population. As we reported a few months ago, the Italian occupation of Nice provided the Jews with a period of welcome respite. However, 2 weeks ago, the Germans invaded the Italian zone, and specifically Nice. Since when we understand that every boarding house and hotel in the city and every train leaving the city has been searched. It is reported that 1,800 people have been rounded up and sent to Drancy, the French holding camp on the outskirts of Paris, en route for Auschwitz in Poland.
Nice, November 1943. Dear Alex, before I start, I must apologise for my strange writing. I write mainly in bed with my gloves on, the only possibility in a room that is always around 5 degrees. For one thing, I have to pay full board for a bathroom. It has a sofa bed, a table and a stool. The room has a stone floor, looks north and is unheated. The gas is cut off. This is how I live. This is how I live every day. One slowly loses patience and hope, courage and fortitude. How I have always wished to see grandmother again. How lucky was I to be so loved. And now it is perhaps too late. Yes, my dear Alex, I can't thank you enough that you give me news of my children. Please remember me to them, and sincere greetings to you from your old friend, Hulda. This letter ought to come to you near Christmas, so I wish you a truly happy celebration and a happy and peaceful 1944. Perhaps God will give us a year of peace.
Panic reigned in Nice amongst the Jews, but Hulda managed to survive. Whether it was with the help of the Christian community is not known, but the church certainly played an ever-increasing part in her life from then on. During the early months of 1944, the Christian churches in Nice helped a lot of their refugee members plan their departure from Nice, which was becoming an increasingly dangerous place to live for people like Hulda, who in their hearts were Christian, but in the minds of the Nazis were Jewish.
Nice, February 1944. Hulda to Reverend Gauthier. Reverend Maitre of the Reformed Church of Nice has given me your address. I have put my name down for the Reformed Church convent, which should go to Isère. Reverend Métrosier has advised me to write to you directly to ask whether, if I arrive on my own in Mons, you could find me temporary lodgings. I beg you, Reverend, to kindly consider my request and to be guide and counsellor for a poor foreigner in these difficult times, for the love of God and our Saviour Jesus Christ. Yours faithfully, Hulda Frankenbusch. Nice, March 1944. Reverend, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Following advice, and to avoid the cost of the journey with my luggage, I will leave with one of the next evacuation convoys organised by the town of Nice. Once again, Reverend, thank you. Thank you 1,000 times. I will do everything to make sure you do not regret having given me your help and advice. Yours sincerely, Hulda Frankenbusch.
Reverend Gonnier in Nice and the Reverend Gauthier in Mons, Isère, an eastern province in France bordered by Switzerland, organised safe transportation for a number of Jews in Nice. On Monday, March the 13th, 1944, Hulda heard that she would be leaving on the Wednesday and sent a quick telegram to the Reverend Gauthier to let him know. 2 days later, she arrived at the station early, as she knew it would take some time to register her luggage and make sure it was all loaded onto the train. She was about to board the train when she was stopped and her documents inspected. Gestapo officers who were checking passengers on every train that left Nice arrested her. Hulda would have been taken to an assembly point and from there to Drancy on the outskirts of Paris. By this time, she must have suspected that her final destination would be Auschwitz. Her luggage continued on to Mons without her, and the Reverend Gauthier looked after it until the end of the war. There is a plaque at Nice railway station commemorating the 3,000 Jews who were deported from there. It reads, between the 10th of September 1943 and the 30th of July 1944, more than 3,000 Jews, including 300 children, were arrested by the Gestapo in the Maritime Alps and Monaco and deported to Auschwitz after having been transferred from the central station in Nice to the camp of Drancy. Almost all those deported were assassinated. Less than 3% survived.
BBC News, 30th of August 1944. Allied forces have now completed the liberation of southern France. Operation Dragoon was launched from North Africa 2 weeks ago, quickly liberating the main Mediterranean coastal towns, including Nice. This follows Allied successes in northern France that started on the 6th of June with the Allied landings on the Normandy beaches, and continued with the liberation of Paris 5 days ago. With this success on 2 fronts, hopes have been expressed that by the end of the year, the whole of France, Belgium and Holland may be free.
It was in a letter from the Reverend Gauthier dated the 16th of October that Ilse first found out about her mother's arrest. Mons, October 1944, Reverend Gauthier to Ilse. Mademoiselle, unfortunately, I cannot give you much information to help you find your mother. And some of the letters you have tried to send to her are finished up here. I'm writing to tell you now all I know. Unfortunately, very little. Your mother was stopped at the very last minute. She had already registered her luggage, and as she was about to get onto the train, was arrested by the Gestapo. She never arrived here. Only her luggage arrived, and this is still in my possession. One trunk, one basket, one suitcase, and a hat box. In all, about 100 kilograms. This is all I know. As for the luggage, I will obviously keep it at the disposition of the family. Please accept my sincere and affectionate thoughts. Goti. Ilse continued to write to various organizations in an effort to find out exactly what had happened to her mother. And it was in a letter from the Czechoslovak Red Cross in April 1945 that she learned that Hulda had been deported to Auschwitz via transit. They wrote, "Since millions of Jews were murdered in Poland by the Germans, it is practically impossible to find your relatives. For in most cases, the trace of all those murdered is lost."
BBC News for April the 15th, 1946. At the International Military Tribunal being conducted in Nuremberg, Rudolf Höss provided the court with substantial details of the atrocities conducted at Auschwitz extermination camp in Poland, which he was ordered to set up and run in 1941, and where he was commandant until late 1943. He revealed that in January 1942, the Nazi government had held a conference at Wannsee in the suburbs of Berlin, where their policy aimed at the elimination of all Jews from Europe was discussed. Jews were to be transported to camps in Poland, where the fittest would be put to work until they died from exhaustion. The unfit would be killed immediately they arrived, and any who survived would be murdered, as they would represent the strongest of the Jewish population and might one day produce children who would take their revenge. Thus, Hitler's final solution came into being as an official policy, and from then on the extermination camps were used in earnest. About 1.1 million prisoners died in Auschwitz, including many of the 70,000 Jews deported there from France via the Drancy camp.
It wasn't until April 1946 that Ilse wrote again to the Reverend Goti, asking him to open the luggage. Mom, June 1946, Reverend Goti to Ilse. Dear Madam, today I finally opened your poor dear mother's luggage. Firstly, I want to say how much sympathy I felt as I was doing it. It is you who should have been opening her luggage. These things she must have missed so much in her horrid detention through Nazi brutality. Is it possible, now that one knows the details of these atrocious camps, how dreadful humanity can be when hate takes over? The photos I have enclosed with this letter. I am sending a first package of her correspondence separately. Let me know if you receive it. Then I will send you a second package. I will also inquire if there is a possibility of sending the rest of her things via the Red Cross. I send you my respects. I am in Jesus Christ, yours, Goti. In this way, this gentle, considerate man described the remnants of Hulda's life as a refugee in France. After staying one step ahead of the Nazis for 6 years since the Anschluss, and surviving in Nice for so long, how tragic it was that Hulda was unable to survive for just 5 more months.
Ilse met and married my father, Sidney Waterfall. And to end this evening's readings, I'd like to read the very last letter we found from my mum, Ilse, to my dad, Sidney. At last, she had found peace. Spring 1946. Ilse is pregnant with my sister Sonia. Hello, my dearest. It's a grand day today, and guess what I am doing? I am sitting in the grass, basking in the sun, and I must say, Junior and I enjoy it very much. The sun is lovely. We both feel great today, and we are perfectly happy. We are both longing for Saturday, when we 3 will be together again. I found some violets, and they smell beautiful. Oh, my darling, it's spring, beautiful spring, and I am happy at last. Never in my life, not even when I was home and protected, have I felt so full of the joys of life than now. Won't it be great to walk through the woods, just we 2 humans, to rest where we want, to laugh and to sing, and to just be happy.
A short intermission before the film starts, Hotel Rwanda. There'll be tea and coffee again next door, some cakes. We have got collecting boxes out for donations. We are sending anything that's raised tonight to the Red Cross in the names of the 3 ladies. Thank you for your attention.